Okay. All right. So I'm the host.
You
That's
are the
not fair.
host.
Okay,
Yay.
great. Thanks everybody for joining me on other people's podcasts. Um, I am Hillary Midkiff. I am based in Sri Lanka. I know these three wonderful women who I'm interviewing today to do a mind meld with them through work. And so I'm very excited to do my very first podcast. And apologies in advance for yammering, and feel free to edit all this out. I'm 42. I'm a contractor for USAID in Sri Lanka. I have one child, one spouse, and a dog that's not with me right now. But yeah, that's a little about me. Love my job, love my work, very stressful. And yeah, over the last couple of years since moving to Sri Lanka, I've just not felt myself. And I feel like my health has not gotten any better since moving here. And actually, it's gone in the opposite direction. So, part of why I want to do this podcast today is to learn from three women in the embassy community who, in my opinion, seem to have it all figured out: their health, their fitness, their diet, their sleep, while being amazingly positive and happy and witty and funny and lovely. So I very much want to distill knowledge from them so that I can take the bits and pieces that work for me and bring them into my own life. So I will let everyone else introduce themselves, maybe not with as much detail as I did. Susie.
So I'm Susie Brown. This will be on my own site, Healthy Expat Parent, as well as on the Big Purple Blob. I am 50 this year. 3 kids, husband. I don't know how many jobs I've had because I have to change every embassy we've been in. Before we started Foreign Service, I was a professor for health education, and previous to that, I studied and got my bachelor's in dietetics, which is where my interest in health and nutrition lie. And I have always been very active, and I'm a certified aerobic instructor. Since that's relevant, that's how I know Hillary and these lovely women beyond the embassy. We do a workout class together. Morgan, your turn.
Okay. I'm Morgan Loosely. I'm also 42. And let's see, my main, very ill prepared for this, obviously, how to introduce myself. First time I've ever introduced myself. I take a keen interest in exercise mainly because as a teen and young adult, playing soccer was a big part of my life. And upon realizing that was not going to be my job, I had to figure out how to get that same sort of endorphin rush and good feeling in other ways. And so it is, as Hillary mentioned, it can be difficult to figure out how to do that when you move all the time, which I do as a spouse in the Foreign Service. So I'm also excited for this conversation to get some good ideas for that. And I guess to Lisa.
I am Lisa Tilstra, and this will go on my Make Life Less Difficult podcast. I'm excited to share there. And I have been a spouse in the Foreign Service since 2011, I guess, 2012. And it's hard. It's hard, I mean, and I'll just say that partly as the introduction because I really believe strongly in the at least for me, it's been beneficial to be honest about the difficulties for me personally, connecting with other people. And the Foreign Service in particular is a community. And I've actually been in other communities like this where it's hard to know where is it okay to share the difficulties. And it's a little bit tricky and messy. I have enjoyed becoming athletic, I would say, in my adulthood. I grew up riding horses. That was like my thing up through my late 20s. And I tried running a few times because I was like, oh, it's probably good for my heart. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. And then it was after the passing of my first husband that I started running and exercising with intention and started doing triathlons and things like that because I enjoyed the physical challenge after having like so much emotional stress. And I think as that life eventually morphed into the Foreign Service life, there's an element of the physical activity that of pushing myself physically that I've enjoyed that kind of balances out, maybe, I don't know if that's the best way to say it, the emotional challenges of this life of moving every couple of years, figuring out a professional life alongside a spouse who has their they're like the main career, things like that. And that's a long-winded, messy introduction to myself.
Thanks, Lisa. We are going to talk about fitness a lot, so I just want to clear the air on one thing. If I were to meet your parents or your grandparents, would they all also have six packs? I just need to know if
No.
are genetically inclined to being super healthy and fit, because you come from great stock, or if maybe just like normal folk.
Mine are normal folk.
Morgan's like, yeah, my grandma's got an 8-pack actually. So
Yeah, no, my family, I would say, is pretty normal. We like we're heavy people, I'll say. There's not a little bird among us.
And for me, I think I do have some genetics from my dad. Like I have three sisters and a brother, and I'm probably the one that has the easiest time in my family of all my siblings of controlling my weight and things like that. And I do attribute that somewhat to the genetics. Like if you look at my mom and dad and my siblings, it's like, oh yeah, Lisa tends to look much more like my dad, and he is never exercised. He's just always been crazy, super active and stayed, kind of like trim and muscular.
okay. Yeah, my dad's a bodybuilder and my mom's not, but he's still super fit and walking around with the 6-pack, but I'm not. So maybe I take more after my mom. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you guys today because I got to a point here maybe last year where I realized, everything I'd been doing up until now, running and training for a marathon, being a vegetarian, vegan, it wasn't working anymore. No matter what I was doing, weight kept accumulating, like muscle. I was just losing muscle that I'd always had, and fat was becoming more visible. And so much of this I attributed to, okay, well, I had a kid in 2018. Maybe this is just what happens after you have a kid, or I've never had such a stressful job before. Maybe this is what stress physically manifests as. My travel schedule is insane, so it's a little hard for me to have a good rhythm of like exercise on this day and this. And then there's this looming threat of menopause, which I swear has to be the reason behind all of this, because what else could it be? But I looked around at the three of you. You all have kids. Some of you are older than me. Some of you travel far more than I do with a much more rigorously crazy schedule, Lisa, and have probably already gone through menopause or started or this. And so that helped me a little bit to kind of, okay, maybe whatever you've done up until this point hasn't worked, or has worked, but now it's not. So talk to other people who are doing things differently, people that you can learn from. And so that's a little bit the genesis of why I wanted to chat with you three today. You all seem to very much have it together, at least physical appearance wise. Not to be too superficial about it, but I also know you all, and I know that you value fitness, you value athleticism, you value being active with your kids, or running rim to rim to rim, or doing any of these other crazy challenges. So yeah, so that's why I wanted to talk to you all. Anyway,
Yeah, just how many rims are there? I'm confused.
there's so many. It's a triangular canyon.
There's a lot, but I will tell you that the final rim is the worst.
I love that kind of run. Perfect.
So I think, I mean, there's a lot in what you just said, and a lot to unpack. And I think what's very, very important for, I think everyone, well, certainly you four, but everyone who might be listening, is it's really important to remember that fitness is a very individual thing, and what works for one person doesn't work for another person. And if there's ever anyone that you look at or want to be like or look like, or have the same physical activity level as, it's so important to remember that, like, that's not you. You're not the same person, and you don't have the same nutrition, water, body type, fat amount, bone density. I mean, there's so many other factors that are so relevant in that consideration.
Just want to note that for the record.
But also, like, I mean, I try and do a lot of like checking in, how are things going, and trying to make sure that, like, what I'm doing fits with how I'm feeling. And that sounds like super hoo-ya and everything, but like, if a run is what feels good, then that's what I'm going to do. If going a little farther feels good, well, that's what I'm going to do. I personally appreciate challenges and races and have done a number of them, but like, I don't need that starting line where I have to like start off with a mass of people. So I've been doing virtual races, and I find them to be super motivating. So I think it's really important to find what works for you, and then keep checking back in and see if it still works for you after 6 months or 9 months or 2 years. And on that, like, speaking of checking in and things changing or not changing, like perimenopause and menopause almost felled me. I did not deal well with that change, and like, just the sheer amount of actual physical and emotional discomfort that came from the shift in hormones. And it is honestly probably one of the hardest things I've been through. And we've done a few podcasts about menopause, and just the whole, like, talking with people about it, and connecting with people who have gone through it, or connecting with your mom if your mom is still living, because oftentimes what your mother went through kind of reflects what your experience might be when you go through it. But just asking all of these things, like, what are you feeling? And then kind of checking in to see if you're feeling those same things, and then what are you doing that might be helping with that, and then trying those different things, because same like fitness, like what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. And menopause doesn't have to be a horrible curse. We make horrible statements about our menstrual cycles basically from the minute we get them and all through life, and then as soon as they start going away, it's horrible again for different reasons. And I think it's important to just really accept with what you're doing, how you're feeling, and then understand that you don't have to go through it by yourself, and there is help for every single symptom that you might be struggling with, that is included as a part of the fun package that is perimenopause and menopause. So that's.
Well, Susie, how do you check in with yourself? How do you have that conversation with yourself? Do you journal? Do you talk to yourself out loud? Like, how do you do that kind of self-assessment to see where you're at?
So usually when I'm working out, I don't wear headphones unless I'm swimming, which is weird, but because then I can kind of like tune in more, and just like, if I keep running and my hip is hurting, maybe, like, if it isn't feeling good, then I should stop. If I'm lifting weights or whatever and it doesn't feel right, then I stop, or I switch, or I do something else, switch to doing something else, because I don't feel like I don't have a checkbox that I have to do every day for what regimented workout I have to do. I just want to do something that keeps me active. And part of, I guess, the motivation I have is, keeping up with the 3 boys, because if I know that if I don't keep staying active, I'm not going to be able to keep up with them, because they're teenagers and they're superhuman, right? So to keep up with them, I have to maintain this pace.
So I'm going to put Susie in this separate box over here where she doesn't need a regimen. Is there anyone who's like the other extreme that does follow some kind of like routine or fixed regimen, or has found like something that works for them just in terms of physical fitness?
Are you a regimen person, Morgan? Because I'm not. I have to really push myself to stay on a regime.
I like a planned sort of workout, but I learn to be flexible with it. So I like to say like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to have it be like legs, arms, core, or something like that. But I regularly don't follow it. So that said, I found that like I benefit from I need some, I don't know, the illusion of something there to tell me I need to do the thing, because otherwise I'll cheat. And apparently it sounds like I cheat anyway, but but I like that. And I think maybe I'm actually just not organized enough to be like on the spot, like Susie, like, well, I'll just pop into some activity that will be very clear, right? Like that this is not like a paid promotion. I love the Nike Training Club app because it's free and it has a bunch of workouts, and you can sort by equipment, or like guided by a person that will walk you through it and give you positive feedback the whole time, or just like a list of exercises. I don't actually like to interact, or lack to not interact with a person that's pretending to put on a class that I'm in. I just want somebody to be like 25 push-ups, go, and then yell out the next exercise. But I do a lot better when I have something like that, even if it's self imposed, if I have some external piece telling me when to do it. And I think maybe, Hillary, I'm curious if you're this way. When I used to run a lot more, I did always be like, okay, I need a run on the horizon that I'm training for. And that helps. And I think I have a ton of friends who've started running like in their late 30s that are doing like couch to 5K, and they love it and it's great. And I think that the bar for women and exercise, the entry point is a lot more accessible now than maybe it used to be for our moms. And it's sort of like, yeah, of course you can start running whenever, or you can walk. And that there's a lot more, like, it's a lot less machismo, sort of like, well, you need to just carry these little pink weights, or like strap on the Velcro foot weights and walk around the neighborhood with the ladies club. And it is, you can go to the gym, but it doesn't mean that then you're there like doing Olympic cleans. So anyway, I think if I were giving advice to somebody who was like, I'm not sure how to change the habit I'm in, like Hillary, you want a different, you are super active, right? But it's not having the effect you want anymore. And I think that finding something where you're still getting that I think I'm maybe a little bit competitive, that you need like a little competition in it for you to be interested. And that you can get that, like Susie does these virtual races, but maybe you need it in in an app with friends where you say, oh, so-and-so did this workout today and I can match it, right? And you can have like a challenge or something, so that it gets you out of your running routine, but still doing something that maybe your body would prefer you do right now, right? Like less cardio and more just muscle building or something like that. But it's very hard to change, especially when something worked. And running for me was always such a meditation that it was like very hard to give that part up because I was like, I can't get the same thing from like jumping jacks and squats.
Or sitting down and trying to meditate. I've also
or actual meditation.
or actual meditation.
I can't meditate in meditation.
No, I really can't. I really cannot. The only time my mind is calm is when my feet are moving beneath me. It's the only time. And that's why it's been really hard, because several people have suggested giving up running if it's not working. But it's just such a zen place for me that no one would like me anymore if I stopped running. I'm 100% sure of that.
But what do you mean it's not working? Is it still bringing you joy?
That was my question.
Yes, it does still bring me joy. And yes, a little bit what you said, Morgan, where there's got to be this goal on the horizon, right? There's got to be this thing that you're training for. And it also gives me a regiment and a plan to follow to get to that goal, which I've always found really helpful to have that telling me what to do. The problem when I try to switch to other activities or weightlifting or this, it just doesn't come with the same kind of, here's how to train for a marathon, run 5 miles today, run 9 miles tomorrow. No other kind of fitness routine comes with that kind of scheduled regularity of the known. And so that's probably a little bit of an issue, but I do recognize that from 40 onwards, you really lose musculature in your body if you aren't doing anything to strength train. And I've seen it. I see it in my arms, and I see it in other places where I can still do the same number of push-ups, but I feel weaker and it's just visible. And so I need to make a switch to strength training. I don't know if any of you had that at any point in your life where it really shifted, where you felt your body shift from something working really well to no longer working for you, and how you adjusted to that transition, or how you transitioned.
Well, and part of it is just age and hormones and all of that fun stuff that we were talking about before. But also it's the way the human body works. Like, your muscles start to atrophy is not the right word, but they don't respond to the stress that you're putting on it in the same way. And so it may result in drop in strength, but it may also result in drop in the ability to do push-ups or whatever. So you have to adjust. Maybe you drop your weight and you go up in reps. Maybe you use bands instead of weights. Maybe you switch to I don't know, gliders, or there's so many different ways to create resistance.
Can I, guys, and we've talked about cardio and we've talked about strength, but maybe what we haven't talked about, and I feel like all four of us are maybe the same on this one, is, do you need a coach? Do you do better in groups? Do you need someone to tell you what to do, or be in a classroom or in that kind of setting? My husband's very much convinced that I need someone to tell me what to do, and I will benefit from that. I recoil at the idea and think that I know what's best for me, and what training, and I will spend an hour every week putting together my plan of workouts for the week. That brings me joy. Doing the workouts a little bit less, but like planning for them is just so lovely. But I'm wondering if I also just need a different setting or a different methodology. I do HIIT class with you, Susie, and that's probably the only time I do anything in a group. Well, Zumba, I also do. That's not really great. Yeah. Don't tell anybody. That's just joyful dancing. So yeah, I don't know. Have any of you, do you do better under a coaching regime, or a fitness class that you're going to 3 days a week or something of that sort?
I will say, for me, it has varied over time and continues to vary. The first time I hired a coach for physical training is when I decided to do the Ironman triathlon. And I was like, okay, this is a different beast. And I'm like, okay, I need somebody to help educate me. And I think the takeaways can be applicable at different times in my life. A couple years ago, my husband decided to hire a personal trainer. And I was like, well, I'm curious of what it's like. I'm kind of resistant like you, Hillary. I'm like, yeah, I don't like somebody telling me what to do. And like, um, and I didn't click well with this personal trainer. So I worked with him for a little while and kind of got my routine. And then I was like, peace out, I'm good. Um, since then, John has also found this cool app that's very like it's AI, integrated and all this stuff. And like it's all for strength training, this and that. And I've used it some and I don't love it, but one of the things that I find was valuable is I'm somebody that I don't like strength training. Some people get excited about going into the gym and lifting weights. I'm like, I'd rather be out on the trail running or biking or
Mhm.
just hiking. Like that is much more enjoyable to me. But like you're saying, and I think I forgot to say I'm 47, almost 48 in my intro. It's important at this point in our lives to continue to keep the muscles present. And even though I'm probably not going to be a bodybuilder at this point in my life, just to keep my muscles there, to help me age well is really important. So like cognitively, I understand this value of strength training, and emotionally, I hate it like every single time. And I also really don't like somebody telling me what to do. And recently, so the app was helpful because I realized I can kind of mindlessly go to the gym and just like, okay, do this next, do this. And because of so much other things going on in my life, there was a period of time, well, it's like, okay, well, that's actually, it could be helpful. I don't have to think about this. I just have to show up and do it. Um, but for me, I find it only works for a sort of period of time, and then I need to change it up. And back to that, I think, Susie, you mentioned this at the very beginning of some of your comments about not comparing to other people. This is probably the hardest thing because it's so like it's just natural for us to compare, and there's so much out there, and this is the right routine, and if you did this then X, Y, and Z, and it's just like it just doesn't work for me. And learning to respect myself of saying, okay, well, like guess what, this training plan is working right now, and after 2 months I'm like totally burned out on this, I need something different. I can feel like what's wrong with me, am I ADD, whatever, but kind of just like, okay, accepting this is what it is. And I think there's times right now where I think, well, maybe it would be nice to work with a trainer for a couple of weeks and learn some new things and get some specific things, but not like this forever. So these are some of the things that I've had to wrestle through, partly of like accepting, like I'm going to go through phases. I'm going to go through some phases where I hardly do any exercise for like weeks, sometimes a couple months at a time. And I'm just like, I need to get back on it, and then realizing, hey, maybe my body's going through something else. Stress, I will say this is my last thing. Stress for me is such a huge impact on everything. And I thought I was kind of getting into the perimenopause thing. I've recently had all my hormones checked and they're like, everything's normal. You're probably not there yet. And I'm like, it's stress. I think all of the quote unquote symptoms that could be perimenopausal, I'm like, I think they can all be contributed to stress too, right? There's a lot of complexity, and stress makes such a huge difference on me physically, emotionally, all of it.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you guys to close out this like kind of fitness piece of it. I know everyone's different, everyone's unique. I'm still looking for through lines through everyone. You all have stayed in good shape through your 40s. Susie, Lisa, Morgan, like a week, what over the course of a week, what does your fitness routine look like, Susie? On a typical week, what does Susie do Monday to Sunday?
Run, lift, swim, biking to work, hit. I mean, it's whatever the day brings. And
Okay,
I'm not,
so you
I'm not,
don't start the week out saying this is what I'm going to do each day.
I'm not especially wedded to what happens. And as you all know, rain happens here more often than not. So riding into work isn't always super fun. So, you switch, you adjust, and just you find what works best. But one thing that I would really like to point out, and I promise I'll be brief, is sometimes if you put your body in too much of a deficit, then what it does is it holds on to what it considers to be energy, which is it's the easiest source of energy for the body is fat. And so sometimes what helps actually create a more lean physique is to instead of focusing on what you're doing exercise wise, is focus on what you're doing nutrition wise. And maybe your body is in need of particular nutrients. It might need more calories. It might need more hydration. But that might be also something that might be contributing to what you are considering not losing weight.
Yeah, we will come to nutrition. That is the next point, and I'm really excited to hear from you on that. But Morgan, what are you doing in a typical week, other than like just playing roughly with your children?
Yeah, that okay, so I'm not to Susie's level of just like constantly moving and amazing fitness in every corner of my life, but I do really try to put it in if I can. So like I always take the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
I will try always to like, this sounds ridiculous, but like I use the standing desk and I'll sit there, and I never did dance. I'm a terrible, terrible dancer. But one time I took like this class where they showed us some of the stuff that ballerinas do, where you swing your leg backward and forward on your tippy toes. And I will like just stand there and do that for a little bit. And then I also have and always have like 5 or 8 pound weights. So that makes it sound, I've made it sound like it was a very serious thing. Then I'm like, or just some any pound weights. And I do like this same arm routine that just has like 5 different pieces to it. I've been doing it since I was like 25, off and on, not like daily, but like once a week. And it's just like bicep curls and shoulder raises and stuff, but just something where it's like, and it's not a ton, and I'm not in great aerobic fitness right now. And I've tried, thanks to probably you 3, have like just been like, I just need to be at peace with where I am, and like listen to Susie's like positive vibes into my brain about letting my body just do what it can. But anyway, so for me, not like I'm not as, what should I say? Like I'm not as happy as I would be if I were running a ton, but I really try to make sure that in a week I'm doing like three things that I would say that was like a exercise. So actually right now I'm helping the girls soccer team, which is what's most of my fitness is. I'm running around with them and not my own children. But but I do count that if my kids and I go do something like that, if you 3 days a week, you're doing something where you're sweaty and not just because it's hot here, then that counts. That wasn't
Lisa,
very
this
helpful.
was great. It was very good. I like this idea of you doing this arm routine for 20 years.
Yeah.
I know. Will you share it with us? I want to know.
Yeah.
You've got great
No.
arms.
His arms, right? I'm like, I gotta go get my 5 and 8 pound weights immediately.
Just one or the other. You can't have both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I like to have some target on the calendar, and it doesn't have to be a formal race. It can be just a personal goal, or I know I'm going hiking in March, right? And I'm going to need to be fit for the mountain. So I like to have some goal, and then that helps me stick to a schedule, because otherwise I can really easily just be like, oh, well, didn't get to it today. So when I do, running 2 to 3 times a week feels good for me. Doing some sort of strength training a couple times a week. I find I'm more motivated than I thought I would be with like the step counter on my watch. And I want to get up to I know like 10,000 steps was like the ideal, but then I read some other article that it was like, oh, that's kind of like whatever random from here. But it did kind of say like for women, 7,000 steps a day helps keep people in better. And it doesn't mean you're going out power walking or anything. It's just moving. And so that is motivating to me. And so I have a watch that tells me how many steps I've done, how many stairs I've done and things like that. And I find that that does motivate me. And it's so, I mean, little tricks like that of like, oh man, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I only have 1,500 steps. Let me just go for a walk. And it's not like a get my heart rate up, and it's just go walk, get some steps, move. And so I try to do that if I'm not doing something formal.
Um, I'm before I talk about nutrition, I just wanted to mention something more that you said about stress. Since exercise for us, for several of us, is also a way to address stress, what are some other ways that you all have for combating stress? And then the only other question about kind of fitness, I guess I should ask this before I go to that. How do you guys maintain it on the road? And I guess I'll just ask Lisa, since I know she has the craziest travel schedule of all of us. What do you do when you're out of whack with time zones, when you're traveling all around the world, when you're in airports and planes for these long distances? How do you maintain your fitness?
I walk a lot in airports. I was in London Heathrow this last weekend and I had my 10,000 steps before I got on the plane because I literally just walked like hours. I know several large airports around the world extremely well, every nook and cranny, every like gate area. And I use that just as a let me walk rather than just sit. And so I take that philosophy of at least I'm walking. When I'm traveling in different time zones, if I can, get into the gym, even for like 15 minutes when I get back to the hotel, I will do that. So it doesn't have to be a long workout. Sometimes like 10 minutes. Okay, I'm like, I'm good. I went, I did something physical. Sometimes just in my room, I'll use the Yoga with Adriene YouTube videos. And even if it's a 10-minute yoga session that I can do. So I try to do little things. I try to go easy on myself, recognizing, hey, I'm going through different time zones. So that's stressful. My body's, whatever, like going through all that stress. So I try to be active, even if it's just the walking, getting some steps in.
Okay, so I'll go back to my stress question. How do you de-stress, Susie Brown? Are you meditating?
No, I'm not a meditator. Shavasana is like the worst part of yoga. Like it just, I can't.
Okay, that's not true. That's the best part of yoga.
No, I am not. That
you
that,
said yoga with Adriene, and I literally had post-traumatic stress syndrome from last year. Like,
no, I feel like how do I de-stress? I mean, I love to swim. That meditating, like it because you're breathing in, breathing out, that whole like just like repetition, that amazing water, especially here because it's amazingly warm. But also just like I love to cook. I use that as a de-stressor. I love to like hang out with the kids. That's always a de-stressor. So I mean, I can't find like one specific time, like today I'm going to journal, which I don't do and probably should, but I find like
Morgan laughing so hard.
Sorry, I just love like, no, just the idea that she like sits down to journal and her stress is just like rising and she's anyway.
It would make me more stressed. Or like
Right,
spending
don't
too
do
much
it.
time in Shavasana would be like, oh my God. To me, just kind of getting we were talking about this before we started recording, right? The lists and figuring out what needs to be done. And I like to just like, that to me is like getting things done as a de-stressor, but really swimming. I love to swim.
Morgan, how about you? What do you do to de-stress?
I love
Houses?
like an audiobook. No,
Mm.
so I will do, I don't, yeah, I mean, I don't know that that counts. Like, I like to just take my mind off of whatever it is and hope that Phil fixes it while I'm listening to my book.
Does that ever work?
So you believe in magic? Okay, I got it.
um, no, yeah, I think I am a very, like, I guess I'm not good at taking that moment to like take a step back and think about things intentionally, but I find that I divert my brain away and then I'll come back and it seems less stressful. So I think I'm not consciously like, I just need to take 10 minutes and listen to this thing and get relaxed or lay in Shavasana. But I sort of like default to just like, well, I'm not going there right now and do something else, like listen to a book or read. Or I'll be honest, now I read, I fall asleep because I'm so old, I guess. So the second I've got a book, it's just like, I'm out. Good night. So that used to work, but not anymore.
So
Although
your
I'm
stress,
relaxed when I'm sleeping.
your de-stress routine is falling asleep or avoidance, it sounds like. So
Yeah, I mean, it works super well. I recommend both
okay, and
for
then
everybody. It works for everybody too. I don't know about Susie's, like everything's individualized. No, sleep and avoidance for all.
yeah,
Pretty good,
sounds
pretty
like
good advice.
okay, so I'm gonna change and pivot a little bit towards food, towards nutrition, towards eating a healthy diet and what that looks like. Again, I 100% agree with Susie. This is all very individual. It's rooted in what you grew up eating, what you enjoy eating, if you like to cook or if you don't, or you prefer to go to four-star restaurants I think there's one of those in Colombo. Um, so Lisa, tell me about what you eat on a normal daily basis. Like um how does your diet affect how you feel and the energy levels that you have, and what does that look like for you?
I would say two things stand out to me. Back when I was working with my triathlon coach, she did some questionnaires to kind of help me figure out what my metabolism is like. And one of the big takeaways is my metabolism does best if I have kind of equal parts carbs, proteins, and fats in a meal. And since then, like I notice I feel better if I have that sort of spread in a meal. She also told me about the JERF diet, just eat real food. And I thought that was brilliant. Like, just eat real food. So I've tried to be really intentional about whenever possible, eat real food rather than the processed stuff. Can I
Mhm.
actually read and understand all the ingredients on something that I'm buying? Or can I just buy like the ingredients myself and make things like that? So the just eat real food thing has been really helpful. And um I have gone from I wasn't a vegetarian, then I was a vegetarian for a long time, vegan for a little while, and I'm not a vegetarian now. And it actually is a little hard. I notice like, oh, I'm like, oh, I feel like there's a should there should be a vegetarian for lots of different reasons. I think it would be great. And also my body feels good when I eat meat. And so I try to choose clean proteins, but it's been an interesting process to just accept and be like, wow, I actually feel good eating meat, even though like for other reasons, I could kind of like see myself going back to be a vegetarian. So those are just some high level things that come to mind for me.
Susie?
I'll,
Oh,
I
go
will just
ahead.
add really quick. I drink a lot of water, and I find staying hydrated
Mhm.
is huge, huge, especially traveling different time zones. Um, Hydrating, drinking lots and lots of water is really valuable.
How much is a lot?
I drink, um, I try to drink at least 4 liters a day. Um,
That is a lot. Okay,
yeah,
that was
so
my only one so far. That was really good.
Beep.
Just 4.
Or-
I drink 10.
I win.
I'm not competitive.
Susie, tell us what you do. What works for you?
Well, so, I mean, drink a lot of water. Don't ever drink sodas or anything, although I do love soda water. So, but that's not really sweetened. I absolutely agree with, Michael Pollan said it best: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And that's really the diet that I follow. Don't eat meat. And by meat, I mean pork, beef, lamb, red stuff. I do eat fish and chicken and turkey, and seafood. I am lactose intolerant, so I stay as far away from dairy products as possible because when I eat them, I am not a nice person. I find that I love bread, and I think that's because I'm Hungarian, and so bread is like, you eat bread with bread. Bread is just, you always eat bread. But I don't eat a lot of carbs. I prefer to have, like, I will not ever eat bad, poorly made, processed bread. I'm going to make my own, or I'm going to find some good source for it. And then I eat a lot of fiber, right? Like, so a lot of like grape nuts and fruit for breakfast, and lots of nuts, and lots of fruits and veggies. And yeah, but I think it's really important to, one of the things that I really try and remember is there's no bad food, right? There's always foods you appreciate and enjoy. It doesn't make them bad because they're sweet or they're chocolate or cakey or frosting covered, but there are inappropriate amounts. And I think that sometimes we forget that, and then we eat something that we consider to be bad or cheating. And as soon as you label a food with that sort of like misnomer, then suddenly it's like a source of guilt, which food should never be a source of guilt, right? I mean, maybe you drink too much, maybe you ate too much. Just don't do it the next day. I mean, it's not, every day is not like where the count comes from. It's on average, right? So like if you one day you decided to go on a bender and you drank an entire bottle of tequila, and of course then you had to have chips and salsa, and then of course you have to have the nachos because you're there, and then you may as well just like have the whole flan because you've done everything else. Well, fine, just don't do it the next day, right? Like I feel like we beat ourselves up about so many different things that, I mean, really, food should not be one of them.
Thanks, Susie. Morgan, food
Yeah,
for
I have
thought.
that. Yeah, so I grew up in like a very food is tied to shame environment. And so I grew up Mormon, and there's also then like a very, food is the vice because you can't have alcohol, you're not smoke, there's nothing else. So it's like dessert. You have dessert and that's your one joy. And just kidding, there's a lot of other lovely things. The But that said, so like a lot, I mean, and my parents are lovely, but they both and carried a lot of sort of like shame about being overweight, and like I should be thinner. And I mean, I think a lot of people are like this, not just Mormons. But so I was always like, oh, I know I would be better if I were thinner, but I was not a thin child. Like I was not super fit. My brother called me Chubby Chase. I was like humiliated all the time about being heavy. And it's only honestly because I got involved in like pretty high level soccer that I realized, oh, like I don't have to be chubby or like ashamed of my body, even though that is sort of a necessary component of being a young woman, it seems like. But luckily, because of soccer, I got, all this feedback about like being strong, and that you had to, you could be muscular and you could be fit. And thankfully through that really found a totally different opportunity for myself and a different future for myself, rather than just like, oh, I bought, and we were all about like, oh, I ate one Oreo and I cheated, so I might as well finish the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, I mean, it took me years and years to divest myself from that sort of attachment to food as an emotional uh, component of my life and control. And I kind of thought, oh, like I finally did it. I learned to eat in moderation, and I would still have like some sweets, but not a ton. And then, but I would mainly still use exercise like as the reason then I could eat. Until honestly, probably like 2 years ago, when I had, anyway, I got a nerve problem in my foot and I couldn't run. And then I was like, well, now how am I going to eat? Because I can't like just run off the calories. And so then I had to, again, I was like, I thought I'd fixed my eating problem. Then I was like, oh, just kidding. I like taped over it with exercise. And so then I had to totally readdress it again and be like, oh, okay, now I guess I'll learn how to eat more healthily, and subsequently in meeting Susie has helped, but like learning just like the nutrients I was giving myself were still totally crap. It was like I was just having like a little bit of sugar instead of like replacing it with something my body really wanted. And that said, like it's not too late, I guess, ever, if somebody's listening and is like, but I'll never figure this out. Like, you can change. It's hard. And I totally wept the night before I was like, I'm going to stop eating these bad things. I like cried myself to sleep because I was like, I don't want to give them up. They're so delicious. And I'm okay. Like I survived, and I don't eat a lot of the same stuff I used to, that used to be like a regular part of my diet. And I honestly would hate me if I were listening to me now, because people would be like, you won't even miss it. And I was just like, you don't know me. Like, of course I'll miss it. But you don't. You start to change, and you realize, okay, like I can just eat these other things and they taste better when I'm not pumping my veins full of processed sugar. And I don't think that's your problem, Hillary, but maybe somebody listening needs the motivation to be like, you can do it. So anyway, I think nutrition is hard if you didn't grow up in a place that taught you how to eat.
Yeah. Nutrition is definitely something I had to teach myself over a long time, but something I really struggle with. My parents were just here, Juan's parents were just here, and seeing how they eat compared to how we eat, and how much more fiber and vegetables we eat. Obviously, we're the weird vegetarians in the family, but it was such a dichotomy between what was on their plates versus what was on ours, to the point where I'm like, how are you still alive? Also still be alive in 30. It just absolutely blew my mind. But yeah, I think what I struggle with is quantity. So it's very interesting to hear you all spoke to kind of the amount. I think Lisa, you said it best. Maybe it was Susie. I can't remember now. I also know the eat mostly plants, eat less, and all of these things, but it is a constant reminder for me, because I think, like Morgan, as a runner for so long and as a vegan runner, there weren't enough calories I could consume that would ever make up for that deficit. And then as kind of running slowed down or just kind of stopped working for me, that's where some of that creep came from again. And you can't outrun a bad diet. I agree with that wholeheartedly, but it's very hard to change your diet and still try to maintain a certain level of fitness. And yeah, if the wheels come off with the training, then the wheels come off with the diet, and these things snowball, and they have such a fun effect. And then you reset, and then you start again, and then you get to do this fun pattern all over again, which I feel like I'm in the midst of doing now, but I'd like to just break it and be done with that. But I really am struggling to find something that works for me now at this age, that I can default to and not have to think about too much, not have to plan for, but just be able to implement on a regular basis. And I do really well with regimen and with restrictions, and almost sometimes with extremes, which is not a natural place that most people like to work, but somehow that works for me. So I really appreciate everything you guys have contributed.
Can I add one more
And
thought on food?
yeah, go for it, Susan.
So I think another thing that we do to ourselves, and a lot of it is just because we have very full plates and are very busy, but we don't pay attention to what we eat. And we tend to either stand when we eat or eat quickly and just get it over with, or multitask and do like 5 different things, or we're looking at our phone or whatever. And I think we were actually just talking about this at dinner, the boys and I, and I think one of the things that I try and emphasize with them, and I think helps people really tune into what they're putting into their body, is to slow down eating and pay attention. Put down the devices. I'm not going to say like take a bite and put your utensil down or whatever, but just like to slow down and mindfully consume food and enjoy food helps you to realize what you like to eat and don't like to eat. And it helps you to, for example, maybe you realize one Oreo is enough and you can put the rest away. Or you realize that, yeah, I don't even really like tofu, so why do I keep eating it? And I think that mindfulness isn't necessarily the answer to all things, but it does help us realize how we really feel about something. And you have to be honest with that, and that helps you to really tune into what kinds of food your body appreciates.
Can I just build on that, Susie? Because that's a thought that came to mind. And I will admit I'm one of the weird ones on the call who I really value meditation, and I don't do it every day, but I like the waking up app, and I have these 10-minute, and I like that process. And the mindfulness of eating really stands out. And I can't remember who shared this, but they had this idea that, when we see whatever it is that is quote unquote the forbidden food, I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't have the cake. I shouldn't have the dessert. Really, the first bite is the best. And to say, like, rather than saying, no, I'm going to pass on the dessert, have a bite. And this is hard for me because I was taught you eat everything on your plate and you clean up every last crumb. And so to take one bite of something and then stop is really hard, or to stop when I know I'm full and I'm like, yeah, but I should finish everything. So that's really hard for me. But like this idea of one bite of the dessert or the something sweet or the something that I really don't want to eat the whole piece of that, but I really want a taste of it. It's interesting to think about because it really is that first bite that's so amazing. And then 10 bites in, you're kind of like, bleh, that's not that great. But that first bite, so to be really mindful about it and savor it. It's like that one bite is all I need to get the endorphins to have that pleasurable experience with the food. And like, oh man, that's so amazing. So, I mean, that just kind of builds on the mindfulness of eating, especially if there's certain things that we want to eat less of, or not overindulgent. Be like one bite and like make it count.
One appreciative bite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I honestly just buy the thing. Am I muted? No. Okay, sorry, I'm an idiot. I just buy I just buy the thing and then I don't need to eat it. Like it, and that's super, I don't
Weird.
know, that is wasteful and maybe I shouldn't admit to it. But I'll be like, oh, those sound good. And I'll buy it and then I'll be like, I don't need those. And
She has a whole full of like food she wanted to eat.
I take it to work or something. I mean, I off it onto these poor unsuspecting coworkers, but I'm not like Susie. I'm not helpful to other people. I lay waste to their diets with the food I can't eat.
Can I add one more thing? This is kind of just on the broad nutritional thing. I did a little bit of an experiment recently where I asked my doctor for a prescription to wear a continuous glucose monitor. And because I don't have diabetes or anything, I had to pay out of pocket, but it costs like $75 for a month. And you put it on the back of your arm, and it was really interesting data and feedback to pay attention to how I felt. I'm somebody who can get really grumpy when I haven't eaten. The hangry thing is real for me. And so it was interesting to then track it with my blood glucose. And even just wearing it for a month, I start to get irritable and I'm like, I should probably just have a snack. Let me start there. Noticing when I would eat something and then I have like a big spike and then it drops, and that, 45 minutes after a meal and I can barely keep my eyes open. I'm just like so struggling, and noticing, oh, well, I mean, physiologically, this is what's going on in my body. And having done the experiment, I'm kind of like, why don't doctors give these things out all the time? Like it's really helpful to understand how my body reacts to different food, because we're saying this like everybody's different, but like it's hard to always connect the feeling with the physiological data. And so that was a simple way of actually getting those data points, and incredibly valuable.
I've thought about trying one of those for a while. I'm actually going for a blood test tomorrow, so Rebecca's gonna check everything, and I believe in doing that once a year. But we'll see. But that's kind of next on my list. And yeah, anyway, that's a rabbit hole I could go down for quite a while, but I don't want to open that box up right now. In fact, I'm mindful of time and I want you guys to be able to get to sleep. Susie's fading fast. Morgan fell asleep 3 minutes ago. So
That was just because I was stressed.
I'm wide awake. It's morning for me, guys. Sorry. I'm just starting to get my energy up.
her headphones are actually a book that she's audio she's reading right now instead of listening to us. But I wanted to end on a high note and let you guys speak to something in terms of either your fitness or your health in general, or your diet, that you are very proud of. One thing that at the age that you are, something that when you look in the mirror, when you think about it, or when you see it, or when you notice it, or when people compliment you on it, something that you're proud of that has to do with one of these themes. Not all at once, just one of you at a time could speak, please.
Okay, I'll go first. I am really proud of the fact that I have, and again, like menopause almost floored me, and I was not myself for a good long while, but now I have the energy even more than I had when I was in my 20s and 30s. And I think that's part of that comes with the knowledge you gain through age, and knowing that, really tuning in and being mindful and understanding that just because it's Monday doesn't mean I go running, because that doesn't feel good to me right now, helps me to have more energy and be more motivated to do more things. So it's kind of like one of those happy wheels.
For me, I am working with this high school girls soccer team, right? And I hear from my kids who go to school with these girls what they say. And so my kids will come and deliver like, oh, they said the practice today was really fun, or like they blah, blah, blah. And it's been like this huge ego boost, honestly, for me, because they're all just like, oh my gosh, like, why are you so strong? And like, why are you still so fast? And like, really these crazy, and I'm kind of like, no, I'm like so much slower, right? Like I see me versus 20-year-old me, but they're like, you're old and can still do all this stuff. And so it's been bizarrely refreshing to be like, oh, like these kids, and I'm seeing them with their like limitless potential, and hopefully helping them see that in themselves. But also, like, it has felt really good to know that like they're seeing, oh, hey, like 20 years from now, I don't have to like quit. Like I could still be active and doing all this stuff, even though like maybe previously they thought like, and that's when you give up, when you turn 40. Like I don't know what teens think, but anyway, so I've been really proud of just like, I guess what seems like being a positive role model for these girls. It's been really cool.
I did a girls running group in last post, and that was one of the best things I'd ever done.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's a really great question, Hillary. And I notice the discomfort I have around acknowledging something I feel proud of. I would say that I am proud of the accomplishments I've been able to make physically. I didn't I didn't grow up in, doing sports. I was really focused in on horses, and obviously there's some activity there and a certain amount of athleticism. But my first triathlon I did in my 30s, on my first one, I literally just did not drown. Like the swim was horrific. Like I knew how to like doggy paddle, but and I really trained for it, but I literally just did not drown. It was ugly, it was rough. And then to say, wait a minute, this is a skill, I can learn it, I can improve, and to improve in swimming to the point where I, swam for the Ironman, to do these things that I look back on when I was in my 20s or even my early 30s, I would have never, ever, 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 ever thought I could do this, right? And have recently done the rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. 10, 12 years ago, the first time I hiked to the bottom of it and tried to get myself out the next day, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought that I could do this long ultra distance. And I love being in the mountains and hiking different mountains and things that I have thought like, wow, I could never do that. But then I have done it. I feel really proud of that. And I hear people say sometimes, like, I hear people in their 30s be like, oh, I'm too old to start that. And I call bullshit on that. I'm like, hello, you are not too old. You're never too old. And I love the stories of the women who started bodybuilding in their 60s and then, went on to compete. And I, at 47, almost 48, I have new goals. Like by the time I'm 50, and it might take me a little bit longer, I don't know, I really want to do a handstand, like a true handstand. I've never really been able to do it in my life. And I'm like, okay, what if I really focus in? And so I'm proud of those accomplishments and recognizing, wow, like the human body is amazing and it takes time and intention, and we all can't do exactly the same things. But if I just pick something for me and then work towards that slowly over time, it's been unbelievable the things that I have been able to do.
Just one thing on the handstand. If you have a hallway in your house, you just do it in the
Ooh.
hallway. Put your feet on one side. That way you don't fall over, right? You just go up and then you just stand. And you don't need 3 years. You'll probably be there in about 3 months. Just use a hallway.
Cool. I like that. I actually have a hallway in my house right now, so that's a great idea.
I want to make
I'll,
your
I'll
dream.
just come hold your feet, Lisa, and then you'll be done.
You just
Perfect.
fall in the hallway. So it's so easy. You got
It's science. It's science.
Perfect.
it's crazy. Ladies, thank you so much. You unfortunately did not give me a magical key and a magical path forward that would be a perfect fit for me, but you gave me lots and lots of good advice and very strong reminders that everyone does have to figure this out for themselves and listen to themselves and chart their own path forward. There were a whole lot of things I wanted to talk about in terms of community and in terms of family and support from spouses and all of these things, but I will leave it here and maybe we rejoin each other another time in the
Let's do a part 2.
Let's do a part 2.
future. Okay, how do we end this?
Thank you. Susie just disappeared and turned her camera off.
I
Just
don't
hang
know.
out.